Hi everyone, this is Mary here on Mary Reads. Welcome back to my channel. It's been 2 weeks since I made a video and that was really upsetting for me. I did not intend to do that. I was dealing with some sleep issues and I was sleeping for like 4 hours a day, maybe 4.5, and that was miserable. The only good thing about that is that I read more than expected just because I was sitting there reading at night trying to get myself to sleep. But it seems that I'm doing a little better now. So with a lot of excitement and this new strength that I'm feeling in my body, I'm getting into your YouTube recommendations with a video I really wanted to make for a very long time. And it's about the books that are similar to Jane Austen. I love Jane Austen. I have her Persuasion for later this year, and I also read a book that reminded me very much of Jane Austen, and I thought that it's time I made a video about all the books that are similar to Jane Austen. Of course, I didn't include all the books. There are more. Today we'll talk about 11. I think 6 of them I have read, and then the other 5 I either haven't read yet, they are on my TBR, or I haven't even heard about before, but now I'm interested in reading. Let's begin with the books I have read, and the latest book that I have just finished is The Blue Castle by Lucy Montgomery. I really enjoyed the book. It was a little bit naive for me, but that did not make the book any worse. So, like in Jane Austen, this is a story of a girl looking for true love. She's getting through certain life obstacles. She is learning who she is, what she wants. And this is a love story with a good ending. I knew what's going to happen before the book finished, like 50, 60 pages before, but it didn't make the reading worse for me. I really enjoyed how the author was writing. I really wanted to see what the character was feeling. I wanted to wait for that moment when she realizes what I have already realized about the plot, and I wanted to see her reaction to that. This very much reminded me of Jane Austen, and certain unexpected turns of events reminded me specifically of Pride and Prejudice. Maybe a little bit of Emma, but I would say mostly Pride and Prejudice. So if you haven't read this book and you're looking for something to read after you read Jane Austen and you're still in that mood, try this. And then there's another Lucy Montgomery series. This time it's series, not a book, and it's Emily series. So I read it backwards, except for the first book. So my grandma was sending me pictures of the books that I left in Moscow, and she was like, oh, do you want me to bring you something? And among all of my books, I realized that I had the first Emily book. And I remember loving that book. I forgot that I had this book on my shelf, but I remember that I knew that it was just the first part, and I was very upset that I'm not getting the second and the third right away. Who knew that many, many years later, I will read parts 2 and 3, absolutely forgetting that I've read part 1 like 10 years ago. So Emily series is a little bit more expansive compared to Jane Austen. If Jane Austen and The Blue Castle cover the lives of already adult girls or close to adulthood, close to marriage, who are exploring their love lives, this is a little bit more like Anne of Green Gables, where we learn about the girl from her childhood and into her adulthood. So we start when Emily is very small, and it's kind of similar to Anne. Emily is also an orphan, but this time, unlike Emily, she lives with her aunts. So she has aunts and uncles. She just doesn't have her parents. Emily loves writing. She always writes like Anne always wrote. And she has a friend who is her age, a boy. And then there is another man who is also interested in her. And of course, in the beginning, she doesn't realize anything because she's in her early teens. So she doesn't know that let's say her best friend has certain feelings for her, or that this person has feelings for her. But later she starts realizing that, and it's like in Jane Austen's Emma, when Emily thinks that that he definitely likes that person and that person and that person, but not me. And then it turns out that everything you thought you knew was wrong. So if you're looking for something a little bit more expansive, if you're willing to read through the life of a character, I will not recommend Anne of Green Gables, even though, of course, you can say, oh, if it's similar to Emily and Emily's similar to Jane Austen, then Anne is also similar to Jane Austen. Of course, there are certain things that are alike, but I don't want to add Anne here because I feel like her love life was not the main part of this story, and there are 6 or 7 books, so it's much bigger than Emily, and I just don't think it's a perfect book to recommend if you're looking for something like Jane Austen, though you absolutely can try. The next book is modern, but it is basically Pride and Prejudice of 21st century. And we have probably all heard about these books or the movies, Bridget Jones' Diary. This story is literally Pride and Prejudice. The main character is even Darcy. He's Mark Darcy, literally Mr. Darcy right there for you. The story is exactly the same. Bridget falls in love with a certain man who she thinks is great. He ends up being not something that she expected and wanted him to be. And then there is Mr. Darcy, who she doesn't like because of certain things. This other man that she was in love with tells something about Mr. Darcy that makes Bridget very angry, but she doesn't know the truth. And it's basically Pride and Prejudice. You will see that it's Pride and Prejudice right away. I don't even want to say anything about the plot because it's basically Pride and Prejudice of 21st century. I love the movies. I read the books. The only thing, it's written as a diary, at least as far as I remember. I've read it a long time ago, but as I remember, it was the diaries. So if you don't like reading this epistolary genre, like diaries, letters, it might not be for you, but I would still recommend this book because it's just so nice. It's so relaxing. It's amazing. So Bridget Jones' Diaries is also my very strong recommendation. Next book is George Eliot's Middlemarch. It's much thicker than what Jane Austen writes, but I thought that I will include this novel here. I read it in college, really enjoyed it. It's a little bit tougher than Jane Austen. It's a little bit more serious, but Dorothea, the main character, or one of the main characters, finds her true love in this story, and in that sense it's kind of similar to Jane Austen. If you really want something very light, if you don't want to get a little bit deeper into the philosophy of marriage, the part a person should play in that marriage, why you should get married, for what reasons, money or love or status, maybe this book might be a little bit too much, and then I would refer you to The Blue Castle or Bridget Jones' Diaries, but this is really good. This is a great story. I absolutely loved it. So if you are fine with reading something a little bit more serious, something a little bit thicker, absolutely try Middlemarch. I have also heard that Adam Bede is kind of like Jane Austen, but I haven't read Adam Bede yet. It's in my plans, so I haven't included it in this video yet. But if you want something similar to Jane Austen, you can in general explore George Eliot. She's a great writer, wrote a bunch of different novels that discuss the same topics Jane Austen discusses, so maybe you can start with Middlemarch or Adam Bede and then explore from there. The next novel is also a little bit more serious, and it's probably a very obvious recommendation, but I thought I'd include it here just in case you somehow missed this book. It's Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I do think that it's kind of different in the sense that it is a Gothic novel. It is a more serious Gothic novel. There is drama and tragedy to a much bigger scale than in Jane Austen, but still Jane learns who she is. We explore her love life, and there are choices that she needs to make. So I do think that it can go as a book similar to Jane Austen. And if you haven't read it yet, absolutely try. It's in my plans for this year. I have read it before in Russian, but I really want to reread it in English. First, because I grew up and I'm sure that I will see it differently. Second, because reading it in an original language is different. I'm fairly confident that the translation that I had was good, but I'm looking forward to reading this in English very, very soon. The next book is the book I really enjoyed, and I gave it 5 stars a year and a half ago. Probably it was closer to the beginning of my channel. It's Tom Perrotta's Mrs. Fletcher. I have to say that now I think that it's a one-time book. I don't want to read it again. But even here on the cover, Tom Perrotta, the author, is called the Jane Austen of 21st century. So yeah, it's kind of there. I could see it through the book. It's a story about a mother and her son who is going to college, and he is looking forward to this college life because he thinks that it's partying, it's girls, it's a lot of new friends. He was very popular in school, so he thinks that he will be as popular in college, but he's struck by a harsh reality that college is actually not what he thinks it is. And his mom is learning to live alone again. Her husband left her and now her son left to college, so she's alone at home. She doesn't know what to do with herself. She doesn't have a person she loves. And so she's starting to explore herself. She's trying to learn what she actually wants, what she actually loves, just herself, apart from her son, her ex-husband, and their interests. So this book is fun. I could say that if you want something like Jane Austen, again, of 21st century, and you have read Bridget Jones' Diaries, you're looking for something similar, this could go, but I wouldn't read it more than once, honestly. I mean, maybe you will have a different opinion. I thought that I will definitely reread this book. It's been on my shelves for multiple years now, but I just don't think it's very rereadable. It's cool, it's fun, but I think it lacks the depth that Jane Austen has in her novels. It's just a fun summer read. So I would recommend it, but only as a one-time read. And finally, the last book on this list that I have read, and the book that I was very hesitant to recommend, but I decided to include it here in case you are a huge fan, you didn't know about this book, and you want to read more about the characters of your favorite stories. It's P.D. James' Death Comes to Pemberley. This book is set 10 or 20 years after Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth get married. They have 2 sons, they have a house, they live their lives, and then a murder happens on their territory, on the territory of their house. I don't like such stories. I don't like retellings. I don't like the books about, oh, what happened afterwards that are written not by the author, but by somebody else. I feel like the book lacked some details. It lacked some logic for me personally. For example, Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy's kids are mentioned, and in the story, it feels like the kids are not there. So the kids are 2 small boys. I think it's like 8 and 5 or 5 and 3, something like that. And a murder happens on the territory of their estate. So what would a mother do? Keep her kids close to her, checking on them, you know, making sure that everything is okay. There was a murderer on your territory, so something must be wrong. I would be very alarmed if I was a mother. But she acts in a way that makes me think that she doesn't actually have kids, or these kids are not hers and she doesn't care about them. I didn't feel like she was a mother. And then if these kids are so unimportant for the plot, then why mention them? Why did you need to make Elizabeth a mother? Just for the sake of showing that, you know, their family expanded? What was the purpose of that? And in the end of the day, I felt like the story wasn't very gripping. It is supposed to be a murder mystery, but set in the universe of Pride and Prejudice. I just didn't feel connected to the characters, even to Elizabeth, who I was connected to, I felt connected to when I was reading Pride and Prejudice. I did not feel connected to her in this novel. So I would only recommend this book if you are a huge fan of Pride and Prejudice and you really want to know what happened next, and you don't want to, imagine yourself, and you want to take a book that will show you what happened. I personally cannot recommend this book. If, let's say, somebody came up to me and asked, oh, what do I read after I read Jane Austen? This would not be the book that I think about, but I can only recommend it to a certain group of people. If you are a huge fan of Jane Austen, if you have read all of her novels, all the retellings, you've watched all the movies, all the different adaptations of those movies, and now you want something else and you somehow missed this book, yes, read it. I think you're going to enjoy it. But if you've read Jane Austen, her books, but you're not a crazy fan to the point where you read everything about her, but you've just read her novels, you really liked them, and you're still in that mood, you still want to get a similar atmosphere, in that case, I don't think this book is going to be for you. I don't think you're going to get the same emotions you get from Jane Austen reading this book. Now let's move on to the books that I haven't read yet, but that interested me, and I put them on my reading list. And the first book is Elizabeth Gaskell's North and South. I had this book on my shelves. I took it from the library and I had it for almost a year, I think like 10 months. And then I had to return it because somebody put it on hold and I couldn't keep it any longer. So I haven't read it in the end of the day. I do want to, especially after I heard so many great reviews about it. I think I underestimated this book. So I'm planning on reading it very soon. This story is about a young woman, Margaret Hale, who was moved from her house in Hampshire during the Industrial Revolution. And she is not doing well with what's happening in the North, and she is moved somewhere, I would assume that to the South. She hates her surroundings, her new surroundings. She hates what she sees, but then she learns about the poverty and sufferings of local mill workers. She gets this strong sense of social justice. And this story is, as I've read, similar to Jane Austen because of her female characters, of Elizabeth Gaskell's female characters, and how they develop in the always changing surroundings. So I'm excited. I do feel like it's going to be a little bit deeper because we are going to cover Industrial Revolution, but I do think that these female characters and the love story will be similar to Jane Austen. The next book I'm especially interested in. I have not heard about this author ever before, but apparently she is a fairly known classic author and she wrote multiple books, and they were all predecessors to Jane Austen. It's Frances Burney with her novel Cecilia. It was her second novel. I don't know about her first one. Maybe it's also something similar to Jane Austen. You can explore the author a little bit more. But today we'll only talk about Cecilia. It's a story about a young girl. She is an upper class woman and she gets introduced to the London society for the first time. She has to make an impression, and she falls in love with a man from even a higher status than she is. And I do think that this is very similar to Jane Austen. I would assume here we will have this angle of societal expectations. You should marry a person from your class. Oh, she is looking upwards. He will not take her. Maybe his parents are against her and her family. And is he going to fall in love with her? I would assume he is going to. So how is that going to work? How is this marriage even going to operate? I feel like these are the questions that we're going to be answering in this book, and I will definitely be looking for that in the library very soon. And the next book, or rather a series of books, a series of 6 books, is Anthony Trollope's Barchester series. I have read about this book on one of the forums, and why that's important is because I really liked the review the person gave it. He or she, I'm not sure who it was, said that this is a soap opera. And basically all the characters are Jane Austen characters, but with different names. And these books are not connected by the plot, so you can read them separately, I would assume, but some of the characters are going to be mentioned in multiple books, so it would make sense to read the whole series. I don't know if you can read books 2 through 6 as standalone books, or maybe just book number 1, and you will be losing a lot if you read book 2 without reading number 1. But I would say that you can start with 1 and then see how it goes. I'm actually interested in reading the whole series. I think that this is going to be really cool. From that review that I've heard, it sounded like it is going to be very similar to Jane Austen. We will get a lot of love, we will get a lot of wit and humor, and I'm really looking forward to reading those books. And the last book for today is a modern book. I do think it's going to be similar to Jane Austen's novels. It's called Austen Land by Shannon Hale. This is a story about a graphic designer, a young woman who lives in New York City, and she absolutely adores Pride and Prejudice, and especially Mr. Darcy, played by Colin Firth in the 1995 series. To be fair, who does not love Colin Firth? Let's be honest here. He is amazing. But she secretly adores him and secretly adores everything that's connected to Pride and Prejudice. And then suddenly her grandmother passes away, and in her will, she leaves our main character, Jane, a trip to Austen Land, which is this Regency era experience in the UK somewhere, in English countryside, where people go and live as Jane Austen's characters. So our main character is going to go and live through her fantasy of living in that time period, and probably she will meet her love. So I think this is going to be fun. I do feel like I've heard a spoiler about who she is going to be in this experience, in this tour. I think I might have caught a spoiler about that, and it is pretty funny. So if you haven't read that book yet, let's read it together and share our thoughts. These were all the books for today. Please let me know if you know any other books that are similar to Jane Austen, and also let me know if you would like a part 2 for a video like this. I have seen some other books that are less known but that people really enjoyed, so maybe we can also go through those. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel not to miss any future videos, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.